Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Silent Shenanigans podcast with Jacob Magadan.
Dalton Phillips.
To dive right into it to start here, we got our Mountain Dew segment of the week. Mountain Dew Code Red for me this week, something we haven't had on the episode. Dalton, what do you got there?
I'm sticking with the diet, dude. I'm going on a little bit of a diet here, so I gotta watch the calories.
Go on. Count the cows. Diet Dew.
Yep. Muy bien, muy bien. Making it taste more like water now these days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It almost defeats the purpose of drinking the Mountain Dew at that point.
yeah,
Diving into our games this week, we got a lot of good games, got good matchups, a lot of top 25 matchups, and games that are very important for teams that either haven't had real competition yet and they kind of get a chance to show who they are, or big matchups in conferences that will decide, who can step up and be the conference leaders and who can be the favorites to win the conference championship. To dive right into it, this first game is extremely important. This is a game where we're talking about two teams that still have a chance in the conference and are vying for a spot in that championship game. Pittsburgh undefeated, Syracuse one loss, and both of them still have a chance in the conference. 2-1, 2-0. And you're looking at a Syracuse team that got this transfer quarterback in Kyle McCord. And then you're looking at Pittsburgh, who nobody expected to be as good as they've been. And at this point, they've looked like a top five team in the ACC for sure. Diving into the stats here, McCord has been great this year. 2,160 passing yards, 19 touchdowns to only six interceptions. Again, that's one a game, but he'll tone it back. He's a guy that's just going to make a lot of passes in games. He's going to throw a ton, and so mistakes will happen. On the other side for Pittsburgh, it's Eli Holstein. This is a guy that was a former Alabama guy that was committed to Alabama. He's now at Pittsburgh, so he's making big strides for him as a player in his career. This is definitely the best he's ever looked. It's 1,700 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, only the five interceptions, and he's been pretty much a big part of what they've been doing as a team this year. But of course, both of these rushing attacks are very important. Dalton, if you want to talk about them.
yeah. LaQuinn Allen. Without LaQuinn Allen, I don't know if that passing attack there at Syracuse is the same. I mean, having a running back like that he's got 94 carries. Giving the ball, they're giving him the ball, and he's got almost 500 yards there. So I mean, he's doing what he needs to. And also Desmond Reed, he's an absolute stud. He's a small guy, catches the ball in the backfield. He's up there for the receiving yards, and he just makes plays everywhere. He had a 71-yard punt return a couple weeks ago. I mean, he just makes plays, and I mean that's a great guy to have on a team.
Yeah. He's a playmaker. He is a big piece of that offense. It's a guy that if he were to go down in any situation, they would lose a top three receiver on their team, their best running back by far, and then of course a special teams contributor like you just mentioned. This guy's very important for them if they want to win this one. Looking at the receiving stacks, you can see Meeks from Syracuse, 38 catches for 459 yards, four touchdowns. But of course, they have Arunde Gadsden as well, one of the best tight ends in the country. He's been a playmaker all year, and really, I guess, putting himself on the scene because they didn't feature him in the tight end award to start the season. So, as a guy that he hasn't got as much respect as he really truly deserves. On the other side for Pittsburgh, Mumford's been their guy all year. And they've also got other weapons on this team that Holstein's been spreading the ball around. But again, we mentioned how important Reed is in the receiving game, as well as the other guys on this team. Going to make a pick in this game. Pittsburgh's got a home game here, a very important game for them on their schedule. They don't have an easy schedule left for the rest of the season. They have a pretty tough one, and if they want to have a chance fighting in the conference, this is it. You got to get this kind of win. I'm going to take Syracuse, though. I think Syracuse has been so good passing the ball, and like you mentioned, LaQuint Allen, his ability to run the ball, almost a 500-yard rusher, gets the ball a ton and just frees up the passing game. And if you don't defend him, he will run all over you. He's had multiple games this year where he's had 70, 80 plus yards rushing, and I think Syracuse takes this one.
Yeah, I like the orange too, but I'm going to go with Pitt here. Pitt's a sleeper pick for the ACC championship, and I like them for it. So nobody thought they were going to win at the beginning of the year, do it any good, and look what they're doing now. So I'm going to pick them to win this game.
Next game here. This is a huge game in the Mountain West Conference. This is a game that we've all been looking forward to as fans of college football. This game could really represent your non-Power 5 team that can make the playoffs. Now, again, we have Army and Navy who've both been really good this year, but in this conference, these two teams are the two teams, and they're expected to match up again, maybe in the conference championship game down the road. So we'll see who's the better team at this point in the year. Diving into the stats here, for Boise State, a guy that, again, we've talked about was underrated coming into the season, and really nobody thought he was going to get the job, in Maddox Matson. He's had a good year. 1,273 yards, 12 touchdowns, and only the two interceptions. That's awesome for a guy that he is, a guy that wasn't expected to take that job. He's protecting the ball well, and he's just keeping the ball in Genty's hands. Don't make mistakes when they don't need to be made. Let Genty make plays, and you just go out there and do what you have to do. On the other side for UNLV, this is a cool story, of course, with Hodge Williams taking over midseason after Sluka leaves the team. And Hodge Williams has been better. He's been a better rusher. He's been a much better passer. And he's also used his guy in Ricky White a lot better than Sluka was using him. Hodge Williams has 838 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Again, a cool story from a guy that was at a small school last year, and now he's participating big time at UNLV, who have hopes for a playoff. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack, because we're
Yeah,
the best running back in the country.
yeah. Ashton Genty. I mean, who's that guy? I mean, he's absolutely insane. He is by far the best athlete in the country. Athlete debatable because you got Travis Hunter, but we're gonna say he's the best running back in the country, 100%, and the best football player in the country.
Yeah.
He is absurd. He has 126 carries. He's getting the ball a lot. You know why? Because he has 1,248 yards and has 18 touchdowns. 17 of them are rushing and 1 receiving. I mean, this just keep feeding this man the ball. He just stands in the backfield, Michael Myers style, just stands there. He's gonna absolutely just run over you all the time. I mean, you watch this guy he's a human highlight reel. He makes plays everywhere, and like it's every week you see a play where he breaks 7 tackles. It's like you just never see this at anybody. And on the other side, UNLV has 2 backs nowhere near as good as Genty, but I mean they're combining together for 300 yards apiece, and that is Jaden Thomas and Kylan James. Kylan James actually transferred from FCS level. Another one of those guys that just he decides to come up to the FBS level, and he's making plays and be the man to Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the receiving touchdown that Genty has, a former high school receiver, a guy that's got really, really good ball skills, really good with his hands. He's also amazing at running routes out of the backfield, and they don't do it a lot, and they don't need to when you can just hand the ball to him and he can get 10 yards. But he is a good receiver, so that's a part of his game that will translate well to the NFL. But again, I'd like to see them start using it just a little bit more on some screens and stuff, and it's also going to help open it back up for him to run the ball more. If you can pass the ball to him and just get him the ball in open space and let him make plays. Looking at the receivers for Boise State, Matt Lauder's their tight end. Dude's a monster. Nicknamed T-Bone for a reason. The guy's a beast, and he's also made some big-time plays the last couple weeks. He's a guy that stepped up. And then, of course, Camper, as you can see, 25 catches for 441 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's Madsen's guy. He goes to him a lot. On the other side for UNLV, this is one of the best players in the country, in my opinion. Ricky White is unbelievable. Ricky White is a freak athlete. He has 3 punt blocks on the year. 3. Count that. That's more than any other FBS team combined. He's done it by himself. He's also returning kicks, returning punts. He plays elite receiver. This is a guy that will go in the first or second round in the NFL draft next year as a receiver. And he does everything. I mean, he is the type of leader and the type of player you want on a football team because he's just willing to throw his body on the line every week for games. And if they're going to win, it's because of him. Ricky White has to make plays in this game against a Boise State team that has a much better defense than people really know. And then, of course, the offense is unbelievable. Going to make a pick here. Boise State on the road, their first true test since the Oregon game. And I like Boise a ton. I think they're a great football team, and I'm just going to stay with them. I'm just going to ride the Boise hype train. I think that they're that good. I think that Genty's that good. And if anybody can win a game just because of playmakers making plays, Genty's going to be the guy to do that. But I think this is a phenomenal football game. UNLV is very good, very underrated. People don't pay much attention to them after they lost that Syracuse game in overtime. This UNLV team is still very good and could easily beat this Boise State team, but I'm taking Boise with the best player in the country.
Yeah, I'm going to go Boise also because of how good Genty is. Genty, he changes the game completely because you can get 300 yards out of this guy in a game, and he was doing that in some halves.
Yeah.
And imagine him in a full game if he's I contribute in half of that. That's still 300 yards a game, and I mean he's just absurd. And give him the rock and let him do what he needs to do.
Yeah, and again, like you mentioned, he can make all kinds of plays all the time. And watch out if it does go UNLV's way, watch out for Ricky White on special teams. It's a guy that, again, I mentioned he does everything right. If they make plays on special teams, maybe they win this one.
That's a game changer. Don't watch out. I'm a former specialist myself. That's the guys you sleep on, but they win the ball games for you
Yep.
most of the time.
And Ricky White's done it for him multiple times this year.
Yep.
Next game here, Notre Dame traveling to Navy. The Surface Academies get a big game, and Navy is very good. This team is, although they're ranked, people still don't know a whole lot about them because they just don't get a ton of media coverage, and they've gotten better coverage this year. Again, them and Army both very good football teams. This Navy team is elite. This is a very good defense. Navy and Army both generally have very good defenses. Navy lives up to that again this year with a good defense and obviously the phenomenal rushing attack. Looking at the stats, the big difference, Horvath has 888 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, and only one interception. So they're not scared to let him step back there and pass, and he doesn't make mistakes. He's only thrown the one pick. He's very conservative with the football, and 10 passing touchdowns is great on the season, especially when he's got 10 rushing as well. Looking at the other side, for Riley Leonard, this is a guy that also runs the ball really well. He's a guy that would fit in well with the Service Academy running the ball all the time because he does it all the time at Notre Dame. But also 1,182 passing yards, 6 touchdowns through the air. A lot of the stuff they do, they get to the goal line, they punch it in with their backs. But he also runs a lot, so he gets those rushing touchdowns, and that's why you see the lower numbers on his passing and passing touchdowns. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack, this is obviously one of the more unique football games for rushing.
Yeah, for Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love is an absolute stud, man, and he's the best athlete on the field. I don't know about this game because Mr. Horvath might have that over top of him, but he's a great running back, and he does what he needs to do with the ball to help out Riley Leonard in the backfield. And for the other team, I mean, it's Navy. They're going to run the ball,
Yeah.
and that you know they're going to. You'll see them lined up, and there's in that triple option formation, and you literally can't do anything about it. They're going to run it down your throat. You know why? Because they have fullbacks like Alex Texa that is going to absolutely just run over you, and also Eli Hennenreich averaging 8 yards a carry. That is insane, and he's also their lead receiver. That's saying something. Daba Fafana is their other fullback, and he's 5'8", 215, so 250 pounds. You know what's going to happen with him. You're handing him the ball, and he's getting 4 or 5 yards a carry. I mean, the reason this team gets the fullbacks get so many carries, you never hear about fullbacks in college football or in any football anymore because of like most teams went away with them unless it's a short yardage situation. This team will have him lined up as pretty much just a tailback almost, and he's running down the field and he's getting 5 yards. Like he is dead set on getting that many yards, and they're going to because they're big guys. And I think that's a position everybody forgets about. But I love it. I love seeing big guys get the ball. This is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, they preach that mentality. I mean, these guys are they're military, so they're hard headed. I mean, taking a hit in football ain't gonna be nothing compared to what they're gonna do when they're in the military. And these guys are prepared for that. They come in here, they play very hard football. They have very good offensive lines generally. They have very good running backs that are always fighting for yards, and they have quarterbacks who never get hurt. These guys are playing every game, running all over the place, taking shot after shot, and they never get hurt. These guys are conditioned well, extremely well, and that's why they're so successful at running the ball. Looking at the receiving game, this is crazy. Notre Dame's lead receiver has less than Navy's lead receiver, which who would have thought that? Navy is actually passing the ball pretty well this year. Like you mentioned, Eli Hennenreich, 23 catches for 485 yards and 5 touchdowns. That is a running back, ladies and gentlemen, a running back with 500 receiving yards. Then looking at Notre Dame, Bo Collins, of course, he's their lead receiver, but they spread the ball around a ton, and Jeremiah Love is extremely important in the receiving attack. He catches a lot of passes out of the backfield, and again, he's their dynamic playmaker, so they want to get him the ball as much as possible. Who want to make a pick in this game? Navy has the home game here. And this Notre Dame team, they haven't looked great in some points of the season, but they've also looked really good as of late. So for me, I love Navy. I love them. I hope they win, but I do think Notre Dame will take this one. I think that they just have the superior athletes on in football terms because they recruit football players, and a lot of the time, a lot of the Navy kids, these guys are mentally stronger, physically stronger, but maybe just not as football shaped in football athletics. So I'm going to take Notre Dame, but again, I love this Navy team, and I hope they win. But I think Notre Dame will win this one.
Yeah, that hope is veering me towards them winning. I'm going with Navy here. I think they just have that fight in them. I mean, obviously they're serving our country, and we are gladly to have them, and they're going to win this ball game 100%. I'm going to be honest. I think they're because this Notre Dame this Notre Dame team is just they face some teams that are like rough, but like nobody mentally as tough as these guys here. So we're gonna go Navy here.
Next game here, Missouri on the road to Alabama. Of course, Alabama coming off the rough loss to your boys down there in Neyland Stadium. But they get the home game here. They're obviously looking to bounce back. If they lose another one, I think their season's over. I think there's no playoff hopes if they lose another game the rest of the year. So this one's important. Every game from here on out, they have to play like the season's on the line. And this Missouri team, they're in the same boat. Yes, they haven't looked great. And I've said it multiple times. I don't think that they're a top 25 team. But they're 6-1 right now. And they're 2-1 in the conference. And they've got a guy in Brady Cook who cares more about football than his health. So you got somebody with that mentality, who knows what can happen. Uh, Going into it, Brady Cook has been listed as unlikely to play, but he also went to the hospital last week and come back and finished the fourth quarter and won on the football game. So who knows? Who knows with this guy, Brady Cook? Also, Nate Noel, big injury, not playing, lead back, 500-yard rusher. That is a big loss when you're looking at both of these teams and just in general, Bama having better athletes. You're just losing one of your best players, and it's obviously going to hurt him in this game. Looking at Cook's season, 1,545 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. When Brady Cook is on the field, their offense is very good. They don't have much of a defense right now, but the offense flows with him. On the other side for Alabama, Jalen Milroe had a good start to the year, had looked pretty good going into that Georgia first half. Since then, it's a different guy. I looked at a mock draft today. He's not even projected to be picked in the first or second round anymore. He's really killed his draft stock, and his inability to pass the ball, I think, is what's really hurt him. We'll see if he can get that going in Saturday's game. But I don't know what he has to do differently. But I think a lot of it comes from let's not target the same guy over and over and over. And I don't think that they're building a system for him to go to the same guy. I just don't think he trusts himself. And a lot of the time, that's where he goes. He goes to his stud and tries to let him make a play. But as you can tell, looking at his stats, he has 1,700 passing yards. He's also rushed for a lot and 13 touchdowns. Big mistakes have cost him a lot. 6 interceptions. He's fumbled the ball here and there. So we'll see what he can do in this game. Dalton, if we talk about the rushing attack, it's obviously going to be a big thing because Missouri doesn't have their lead back.
Yeah, Missouri is out their lead back. Got hurt last week, and Marcus Carrell is the backup. Will take most of the snaps, most likely, because of the injury.
Mm.
And on the other side, Alabama has 2 running backs. That is Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes is more like the receiving guy. You get in the ball outside the backfield and just let him make plays. And then Jam Miller is the kind of guy they just let you run over top of. He's trying to run over top of you. But I mean, they both haven't been excellent this year. I mean, Jam Miller's played pretty good, but like last week they struggled. But I mean, obviously, look at Tennessee's defensive line. I mean, what can I say? They're crazy good. But there's 2 good backs there. They just need to get the ball more and get the ball out of Milroe's hands. I'm gonna be honest, because Milroe doesn't. He's a running back.
Yeah, I think a lot of what their offense could be, what they could turn it into, is more of an option type
Yeah,
offense where they'll let him do a lot of RPO type stuff. But again, RPO is harder for him to run because
yeah.
he has to make good decisions, and he
He needs
has
to
had
be
a lot of
mentally there.
yeah, exactly. And he's made a lot of mental errors as of late. So we'll see what they do. Again, their offense is going to be unique because I assume, will change some things. I don't see how that process of just going to Williams 20 times could work in against especially this team and even LSU later in the year. So we'll see what they do. Looking at the receivers for Missouri, you have multiple good receivers. I mean, Weiss Jr. is their leader, and then they have Luther Burden, a guy that's going to be a first-round pick in next year's draft. So we're talking about a pretty elite offense. And even with losing Nate Noel, they still have a lot of talent on the field. And then on the other side for Ryan Williams, I mean, the dude's a monster. Ryan Williams is absolutely carrying this Alabama offense. He's been their guy all year. And I just keep going to him, I guess. But let's change how we get him the ball, maybe, and not be so focused every play of the game going to him. Of course, Jeremy Bernard, Kendrick Law, like you mentioned last week, these guys probably should get the ball a little bit more and see if you can work around just going to him all the time and use your other guys. They still have talent, they still have skill. It's just like they don't use them enough. Going to make a pick here. Again, if Cook doesn't play, it's going to be Drew Pine at quarterback for Missouri. And I don't trust Drew Pine, so I'm taking Alabama at home. I think Alabama will win this game. And I do think it could be close if Cook plays because I think their offense will be able to score on Bama's defense. They haven't proven to be very tough this year defensively, but I think Alabama takes this one at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go Alabama too because there's nothing like playing there. I mean, over in Bryant Denny, there is nothing like it,
Yeah, they have
and
great
it's
state.
it's second. I think the Neyland's at first in the SEC. I have LSU there somewhere there too.
Yeah, I would have
Uh,
Death Valley number one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the top 3 right there, 100% in college football, in my opinion. The SEC's there's nothing like it, and in Alabama, Missouri just doesn't have that crazy fan base that Alabama has. I mean, I live with one. I mean, I trust me, I hear it all the time. We're gonna win. We're gonna win next week. They didn't win last week, but they're gonna win this week. So I'm going Alabama here.
Next game here, Illinois on the road against Oregon. This is Illinois' biggest test all year. This is the toughest game they will play. This is an Oregon team that before the season, a lot of people picked to win the championship. Have very good offense, have turned it around on defense, have been much better as a defensive unit. And this Illinois team, again, offensively, have been pretty daggone good. But again, they've lacked defense. They let Purdue score 49 points on them. So we'll see how they can handle an Oregon offense that is one of the best in the country, if not the best. Looking at the stats, Luke Altmaier, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, only one interception. This is a guy that I think has really boosted his draft stock. This is a guy that teams are looking at and they're like, man, he's very conservative with the ball. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes good decisions. He is a good passer. He's actually been a better runner this year than we expected. I think Altmaier's looked really, really good. So we'll see what he can do against Oregon. And then Dylan Gabriel, this is a Heisman candidate. He was in my top five a few weeks ago when we talked about that. 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and he has elite weapons all over the field. His running back's a beast. His tight end's a beast. He's got 4 or 5 receivers that are all very good. So for him, it's easy. He can get the ball out. He can make plays left and right. And Dalton, the rushing attack is important here if you want to talk about it because Illinois split backfield and Oregon lead back.
Illinois' running game is really good behind these three backs. I mean, they're all good. Caden Fegan is the lead back. He's a stud, and I like to see him get a little bit more carries. Josh McCray is another great running back. He's the number 2, and Aiden Lawfrey. I mean, he gets some carries in there too, and I mean, they're all three good. And I mean, they're nowhere near as good as the guy on the other side of the ball, Jordan James. I mean, he's an absolute stud, and it's crazy that he's doing the numbers that he is with how good Oregon's passing game is. But I think it's like a thing where he runs the ball so good, so they pass even better. And he has 717 rushing yards, as you see, with 8 touchdowns. I mean, this guy is getting the ball and he makes plays, and he needs to keep doing that because if he keeps doing that, I mean, who knows? They may be an undefeated season here. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, this Oregon team in general is so talented, uber talented to be honest. And like you said, James is a big piece of that. He does a lot to open up the offense, but when you're looking at an offense that has a 2,000-yard passer as well as a 700-yard rusher, it is very hard to stop them. They score a lot of points. They have a lot of yards per week. And then you talked about it with Illinois. Aiden Lawfrey has been their guy the last couple weeks. He's been their lead back, so he's kind of took over in that spot. So it's really interesting because they have backs all over the place that can run the ball, and they even have Khalil Valentine down the list that we talked about, back at the beginning of the season, like week 1 or week 2. He's also on this team. So they have multiple backs that can rotate in and out. So it's not gonna hurt them that much if they have a guy that goes down or needs a break here and there because they can put in a lot of different guys that can make plays. Looking at the receivers, of course, for Illinois, we've talked about him many times. Pat Bryant, he's their guy. Altmaier knows to use him and just continue to use him. He's very, very good. He makes plays all over the place. Of course, 484 yards, 7 touchdowns. And on the other side, rivaled by Tez Johnson, a guy that's also very, very good, very talented, will be an NFL guy. He has 536 yards, 7 touchdowns, 57 receptions. Also on top of that, they have Evan Stewart, they have Trayshawn Holden, they have Terrence Ferguson. The list goes on and on and on with talent that they have, and that's again why I think this offense is just so hard to stop. Going to make a pick here. They have such a good home atmosphere. It was an atmosphere that was kind of underrated before, but when game day went there, people got to see they're legit. They have a very good home crowd, and I think Oregon takes this one.
Yeah, I'm obviously going with Oregon here too. Oregon, I mean, their atmosphere is great. I mean, look at their jerseys are fire. I mean, they have the coolest jerseys in college football, and I mean, they're just going to look good. They're going to play good, and they're going to win this ball game.
Yeah, I agree. They always have sick jerseys because founder of Nike went there.
Yep, he did, and he gives them a lot of money. That's why they get them players. They get the NIL right there.
They also have like 18 different jersey combinations, so if they played a full season, they couldn't even wear them all.
Yeah, that's insane.
Next game here, Vandy gets another big home game. They're putting up nets for this game. This is obviously a huge matchup for them. Again, looking to have the greatest Vanderbilt football season ever right now. This is another game where you're playing a top 10 opponent in the SEC, another chance to get a top 5 win, which they had 0 of coming into the season. And they're playing a Texas team coming off a huge loss where they just didn't look right. For a half of football, they were ugly football, man. Not playing good football. The line couldn't block. They couldn't really stop Georgia. It was bad. They're going to be hot coming into this game. Their coach is going to fire him up because Sark, he don't like losing. He was with Saban, and he knows what losing, when they do lose, what you do to get the guys back in shape to win. And looking at the stats, Quinn Ewers, 1,100 yards. I think this is only in his 4th game, maybe 4 games I think he's played, and has 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns. Does have the 4 interceptions. He did make a mistake last week, and he didn't really look like himself again for the first half of that game, but he ended up playing a pretty good second half. Then, of course, you look at Vanderbilt with Diego Pavia, a guy that's been phenomenal this year. I mean, what else can they ask for? Pavia has been the perfect quarterback for Vanderbilt. He cares so much about winning. All he wants to do is win. That is his whole focus. And that's obviously the kind of guy you got to have at a program that hasn't won in a long time. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for both of these teams.
Yeah, Texas has two great running backs, Quintravion Wisner and Jadon Blue. They're both great. And I'm honestly, they need to get the ball a little bit more because you see Ewers struggling. Hand the ball off, let him run a little bit. I mean, you have to do that. That's how you win ball games. If you're struggling in the passing game, run the ball. It's simple. It's simple. And they because they were struggling in the pass game, like they were struggling a bit in the rush game too. But I mean, if you run the ball 30 times a game, one or two is going to break free. That's just going to happen. And for Vandy, I mean, Pavia is your main contributor in the rushing game, and it shows. He's a stud, and that's the reason I have him in my Heisman talk because he wants to win football games, and he does. I mean, he is. I'm proud to have him in the Volunteer State, even though he's not for the Tennessee Volunteers.
And the receiving game for both of these teams is very important. Of course, Diego Pavia has been a much better passer this year than a lot of people would expect him to be. A guy that is a very run-first quarterback, has developed quite the passing game, as you can tell by looking at Eli Stowers. He's had a really good year this year, 33 catches for 463 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, they have other guys that we've mentioned in the past, like Quincy Skinner. And on the other side for Texas, Isaiah Bond, a phenomenal receiver that's struggled a little bit here and there, but again, I think the veteran connection hasn't been there due to Ewers' injury. And then, of course, Ryan Wingo, the young kid, playmaker. He's done it all year. He's a really good receiver for them, and he'll be good in the future, especially because he's got a lot of time to develop in college. Vanderbilt has the home game. Of course, we mentioned the netting earlier. Kind of funny that they did that. Apparently, that's due to them wanting to stop them from throwing stuff on the field. And they
I mean,
made
I would too. Look what they did last game. That's bad. Like that is ridiculous. And the fact of is they got the call overturned too.
Well,
That
I don't. They didn't get the call return due to that, but they gave them time to stand over there and talk about it, and so then they actually reverted it. Of course, the decision was the right decision, overturning the call. It was definitely not a pass interference, but the throwing stuff on the field, yeah, it gave the refs 3 or 4 minutes because they had to go clean it up or whatever, and the refs started talking, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, that was a horrible call. Why did we call that?" But yeah, you can't overturn a penalty. It was just the guy picking it up because he was like, I don't know why I even threw that. It wasn't a penalty. But yeah, I mean, to be rewarded by it was rough. It was a bad look, but again, they can talk about a penalty and pick it up. So weird situation, but it is kind of funny that Vanderbilt is clowning them with that. But to make a pick, I think Texas. Of course, they're looking to bounce back after a rough loss last week. They're on the road. Texas fans are all over the place, and Vandy's just become this good. So I don't know if the fans will still show out or not. You know, the students will probably be there, but the fans, there's not a ton left probably. So I think Texas will win this one on the road. I think they're a more talented team, and I think we'll see what happens. I think Ewers, if he's healthy, he's a phenomenal quarterback. He's looked a little bit rough the last 2 weeks, but if this is his get right game, maybe, and I think Texas takes it.
yeah, I'm gonna go horns down, Vanderbilt all the way. I mean, that's not Tennessee, but it's the second best team in Tennessee, and they're going to beat Texas this week.
Next game here, LSU on the road at A&M. This is massive. This is the game to decide who will be the sole leader in the conference. Whoever wins this one stays undefeated in conference play and will have the number one spot in the SEC. I don't think we were talking about this game as being who would be number one in the conference, at the beginning of the year, but both of these teams have looked pretty good. Texas A&M had a rough start. They didn't look so great to start the year. They've looked much better since. A top-tier defense, and Wegman started figuring some things out at quarterback, and then LSU. Nussmeier has been amazing. He's really, in my opinion, a Heisman candidate at this point,
Yep.
and their offense is just so good. Look at the stats. I mentioned it, Heisman candidate, 2,200 yards, 18 touchdowns, does have the 6 interceptions. They throw the ball a lot, so he does make mistakes here and there. But again, that's part of a heavy passing offense. And then on the other side, for Connor Wegman, his stats don't look great right now, but he did have some games where he was on the bench and not playing. He's come back, he's looked much better. And I'm thinking maybe that benching really made him realize I got to figure something out because what I was doing wasn't working. He has 700 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Again, it was a bad start, but good sense. Don't even talk about the rushing attack because both of these teams has been
Yeah.
pretty important lately.
Yeah, Caden Durham is a freshman. He took over he was a back at the beginning of the year and took over the spot after week one, and he's not stopped. He runs the ball great. And on the other side of the ball, maybe one of the best running backs in the SEC, and that in Le'Veon Moss. He is a stud. I mean, he has almost 700 yards in the year, and he's helping out Wegman. And that's what's winning the ball games. Le'Veon Moss is winning the ball games, and if he doesn't get started, they'll lose this ball game. I will be honest.
Yeah, elite rushing attack that they've had is definitely helped Wegman a ton. Wegman doesn't have to make as many plays when Moss is making plays left and right. And like you said with Durham on the other side for LSU, they've really got him going, and that has just opened up their offense so much. They didn't have much of a rushing attack at the beginning of the year. When they lost the game they did lose, it was because they couldn't run the ball. Even though they passed the ball well against USC, The run game wasn't there. Now it is. Durham has figured something out. He's flowing. He's been really good as of late. We'll see how much that helps him in this game. Looking at the receivers. For LSU, again, these guys always work out. They always play well. And
Yep.
Kyron Lacy is a stud. This is a really, really good receiver. This is a top tier receiver in the SEC. He's been making plays left and right. A game winner against Ole Miss. Has 512 yards, 6 touchdowns, and they have other guys to complement him on this roster. On the other side for A&M, as you can see, Thomas has been the lead guy for Wegman, but they do spread the ball around a little bit. And heck, even once in a while, Moss gets a reception just because he's a playmaker and can do things in the passing game here and there. Not an elite pass catcher, but he is a good pass catcher. 289 yards, 3 touchdowns for Thomas. Again, he's important. They have to have some passing game, otherwise LSU will just key in and stop the run game. I want to make a pick here. A&M does have the home game, and that's important. This was talked about as one of the better, home atmospheres in the SEC coming into the season. And I just trust LSU a lot in this game. Give me Nussmeier and LSU to take the win here.
Yeah, I'm going to go LSU here too. Kyle Field is no joke either. I mean, it's another SEC school, and it's one of the places that you don't want to play at. But LSU's offense is just so good. I'm going to go LSU here.
Next game here, Penn State on the road against Wisconsin. This was a game that you really wouldn't have thought we would talk about a couple weeks ago. Wisconsin was coming off 2 losses to Bama and USC, where they looked really bad. Bad football. Not pretty at all. They've made some changes. The offense has changed a lot, actually, and it's started to turn around for them. This is a 3-1 team in conference play right now, running into a Penn State team that is now ranked third in the country. They have played very good football this year, and we'll see who can win this matchup at Wisconsin. Looking at the stats here, Drew Aller, this is a guy that is a first-round pick in the NFL now. He has boosted himself a ton. He is getting talks of even being a top 15 pick, and I don't think that last year would have said that because Aller struggled a lot. He has 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. And on the other side for Wisconsin, Locke has took over as their quarterback, and they've had issues at that position. When he comes in there, he's done better. He's got 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Again, I'd like to see him tone down on the interceptions, especially in a game like this against Penn State. But he does have a really good rushing attack that has started to warm up as of late. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for both these teams.
Yeah, Nick Singleton and Keytron Allen both have over 400 yards for Penn State. And I mean, that's helping out Drew Aller, and that's making Drew Aller look good because obviously if you have 800 yards between your running backs, that's absurd, and you just need to keep giving them the ball. And Wisconsin has Tawee Walker. I mean, there's no stopping this guy. He's got almost 600 yards on the year, and feed the guy the ball a little bit, especially if you're struggling the quarterback position. And he was actually at Oklahoma last year, Boomer Sooner.
Yeah. He got 500 yards there when he was at Oklahoma last year. So, of course, that's important. And as you can tell, Walker's been a big piece of this offense. They had multiple back systems at the beginning of the year. Both of those guys have been benched since, and Walker's become their guy. He's been very important in their winning streak that they're on, which is a 3-game winning streak. And it's kind of changed how they play offense. They just get the ball to him a lot, let him make plays. And, of course, like I said, the quarterback switch has also been big. Looking at the receiving game for both of these teams, Tyler Warren is a beast. Best tight end in the country, 513 yards, 4 touchdowns. We'll see if he can repeat what he did in his last game where he was ridiculous. And on the other side for Wisconsin, as you can see, their lead receiver only has 13 catches on the year, but 314 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's really good in his receptions. Get him the ball a little bit more. We'll see if Locke can feed him in this game. Going to make a pick in this game. Wisconsin does have good home field advantage. Of course, jump around, one of the cooler traditions in college football. However, I think Penn State takes this one. I think their offense has been very dynamic this year, a top-tier offense, and Franklin coaches up the defense really well. So I think Penn State takes this.
Yeah, I actually think Penn State's going to be jumping around after this game after they win. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any way Wisconsin wins this game. I mean, I know Penn State's a little bit overrated, but they're still a top 10 team in the country, and I just don't think Wisconsin's there, especially with their quarterback struggling.
Next game here, SMU on the road against Duke. SMU has looked like a top-tier team in the ACC. Some would argue that they've been the third-best team, even though Pittsburgh's ranked ahead of them in the rankings. And Duke, a 6-1 football team. I don't think anybody expected that. Malik Murphy's been a big difference for them after he transferred in from Texas. And you look at the stats. I mean, Kevin Jennings, when he took over at SMU, they are a completely different football team. It was a team that a lot of people thought Stone was going to be a good quarterback, and Jennings has been far better. He has made them the team that they are. His ability to run the ball as well is also very important for them. And then Malik Murphy, a 1,500-yard passer here at Duke. He wasn't doing that at Texas last year. 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, does make mistakes here and there. But again, it's a different guy than you saw at Texas. Dalton, if you want to talk about the rushing attack for both of these teams, it's been very important this year.
Brashard Smith, I mean, he's a stud. Has almost 630 yards on the year with 91 carries. For SMU, that's important because, I mean, they pass the ball a lot, and that's another time where running the ball helps you out a bunch in that situation. And for Duke, you have Star Thomas. That's a really cool name. Star is running back. That's just pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, he has 134 rushes attempts, and I mean, he's got 616 yards. He gets the ball and he makes plays. I mean, that's all you can ask from a running back, especially with a Duke team that's on the rise right now. Apparently, I mean, they're going off, and I'd like to see them keep doing it because I mean, I know you don't like Duke, but
No. Yeah, I can't stand Duke, but I will say Star Thomas is a guy that they obviously trust a lot. 134 carries is a ton, and they are using him, like you said. In general, he's their guy. They just go to him, let him make plays, and then Murphy, of course, can run the ball as well as a quarterback that rushes well. Looking at the receiving for both these teams, SMU big blow. RJ Maryland is done, season over. Tight end that was one of the better tight ends in the country, a guy that contributes for them a ton, as you can tell. Looking at it, he's their lead receiver. They're gonna have to go to other guys now, make plays. And that's up to Kevin Jennings. Can he make plays? Can he let other guys make plays without his star guy? On the other side for Duke, as you can see, Moore has 31 catches for 453 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's had a great season so far. Murphy uses him a lot. He knows that that's his guy, that's his target, and he goes to him when he needs him. Going to make a pick here. Duke has the home game, but again, this is not a fierce home environment because Duke just hasn't had a pretty good football team for a while. They were good last year. Of course, the coach leaves, so then you think, well, that's it. They're going to go back downhill. And they haven't. They've done a good job. The coach has got them playing good football. They've also brought in some good transfers that have helped them a lot to stay relevant. But I still think SMU takes this. I think SMU is a very good football team. They've looked great since the Kevin Jennings switch. And that loss at the beginning of the year looked really ugly. It's a different team since then. I think SMU wins this one.
I'm going to go Duke here. I know you like UNC in basketball. That's hinting towards maybe another thing there. We might have a basketball series coming your way. But I'm going to go Duke. I know it makes you mad a little bit because I know you hate them, but we're going to go Duke.
Yeah, I don't hate them as much in football, but I still, of course, don't like them as an overall team. Next game here. This is being called the Tecmo Bowl because you got Tech and Tech playing each other. Of course, Virginia Tech is the real Tech, if we're to be completely honest about it. But Georgia Tech, they're coming in here with an injury that is pretty key, something that has to be mentioned in this game. They don't have Haynes King likely. Now, they're saying he's going to play. They're like, he's day to day. He might play. But again, I think it's kind of a cover up just to make you have to game plan for the guy because he is such a dynamic player. And without him, it's definitely an easier game plan on defense. And then on the other side for Tech, of course, we're luckily right now pretty healthy. Hopefully that stays that way. And that bye week last week before the big game on Thursday, that really helped us a ton. Diving into the stats here, Haynes King on the year. He's their guy. I mentioned the injury. I think he won't play. That would be Zach Pyron taking over a quarterback. If Tech fans do remember, Zach Pyron was the quarterback in 2022 when they beat us. Of course, we had the old remains of Justin Fuente's squad, which was such a great team. I love Justin Fuente. He's an awesome coach, you know.
Love
Uh,
that.
yeah, he sucks. I hate Justin Fuente. Um, but yeah, Pyron got that win against us then. Again, I don't look at that too much. That was just a different football team, different era of football for us. And now Pyron comes in here again, a guy that is a power rusher, hasn't done a ton. They've really not trusted him a lot. They went out and got transfers over him to play over him in the last couple of years. Former four-star guy that had a lot of potential but hasn't showed it. We'll see what he can do in this game. On the other side for Tech, Kyron Drones, he's had 3 straight QBRs above 80. He's had 3 of his best weeks in a row. So he's looking on the up. And we haven't really seen that breakout, like insane passing game. At some point, he's going to have one of those. He had a couple last year. And maybe it's this game. Maybe they lock in on Tootin because he just had an insane game last week, and Drones can pick him apart in the passing game. Again, he has 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, does have the 5 interceptions, which is more than he had last year already. But again, I'd like to see him tone back on that, of course, and just not make the mistakes. But he's been pretty good so far. Don't even talk about the rushing attack for both these teams, as they both lean on it a lot.
Yeah, Jamal Haynes is he struggled last week. I mean, but he's the guy for Georgia Tech right now because I mean your quarterback's gone and that's who you have to lean on. And obviously at Tech you have Baseball Tootin, which I've said all year is a top 5 running back in college football. And he's another one of the guys that just shows out. And I love watching that guy play. And I'm sad I probably won't be attending this game. I wanted to be. Tickets a little bit too pricey for me. Not got me feeling nicey. I want shout out John Gruden there. I love watching Baseball Tootin. I mean, Maggard put me on with him last year. Didn't know him very well, and I just like watching this guy run the ball. He makes plays, and when he gets the ball, he does what he needs to do, and that's what you need over running back, especially with a tech team that relies on him as much as they do.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, the rushing attack in general for them is pretty good with Drones being able to run himself. And I'm so glad they've went away from that. Let's run Drones 20 times a game because we just need him to stay healthy. But on top of that, he doesn't have to do that when you have a back as good as Tootin. You know, he can actually sneak out of the backfield and run for a big gain when you're not running him so much. Let him make plays. Again, he did it last week with the rushing touchdown that he had, where they let him keep it and he goes, and they're not ready for that because they expect Tootin to get the ball. So I like how they've changed the offense. It's been very good as of late running the ball. Looking at the receivers, Georgia Tech does have two studs. They have Malik Rutherford, and then, of course, they have Eric Singleton. These are two guys that are very good receivers. But again, who knows how they're going to get the ball in this game? King was feeding them. I don't know if Pyron could do the same. On the other side, of course, Jalen Lane is the lead receiver on the year for Tech. He's a playmaker, does everything, special teams guy. And then we've got multiple other receivers that have had good years so far. Of course, the brothers Gosnell, Steven and Benji, they've been great. And then Daquan Felton has been much better as of late, and I think that could come from how Drones has been playing. It's helped Felton a lot. And then Jennings. Ollie Jennings is finally healthy. He played last week, and I'm expecting him to be a big playmaker. He's listed in the top at the depth chart. He's expected to be starting on the outside. So, again, he hasn't had his big game yet. This is a guy that was an elite talent coming out of ODU when he transferred here and just faced a serious injury last year. And then, of course, this lingering injury this year. So it's a guy that still hasn't broke out. If Tech can add an elite receiver to a team that already has pretty good receiving, it's going to be a difference maker if they can get that guy going. Going to make a pick here. Of course, you know what I'm doing. I mean, it's the home game. Lane Stadium's going to be bumping. It's homecoming. And Virginia Tech, I expect them to blow this team out. I really do. I think that without Haynes King, they are a different football team. We saw them against Notre Dame only be able to score 13 points. I think that Tech's defense has been really good as of late. We're going to get after them. And another thing to mention, their leading sack getter only has 2 on the year. So they don't have very much pass rush. Their pass rush hasn't been very good at all. So if you let Jerome stand back there, he can't pick you apart. I think Tech takes this one big.
Yeah, I'm going to go Tech here too because of Tootin. I mean, he reminds me of a running back there. I went to his football camp when I was little. Kevin Jones. I remember that guy. I went to a football camp down there at Tech when I was about 10 years old. Reminds me a lot of that guy, and I want to see just another Tech running back show out.
Yeah, he's a beast of a rusher, man. I love him so much. I'm so glad he's at Tech.
Yeah,
We got very lucky to get him again, an NCAA&T kid that come over from the FCS level and was an FCS All-American, and he's been a diamond in the rough, a gem, a phenomenal player. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. It's been a very fun video to film, and we had a lot of good games here. This is a week full of ranked matchups, big time games in the conferences that could decide a lot of things. And I'm just very excited to see Tech play on Saturday. I actually like the 12 o'clock time when we start getting into the colder weather. It keeps it a little bit warmer outside. And I'm just expecting a good game from Tech. Dalton, if you have anything you want to add.
yeah. I'm gonna say this is a bye week for Tennessee. I didn't hear him talk about him this week. That's usually all I talk about. I still put a few hints in there, especially the Alabama game. Excited to come off that game. Looking forward towards next week and go Vols.
Yeah, again, thank you guys so much. Like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed. And also, like Dalton mentioned earlier, if you like the idea of a college basketball thing, I'm very big into college basketball. I've kind of got Dalton into it as of late.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping we can start a college basketball segment as well, maybe another episode a week. But if you guys are interested in that, let me know down below. And again, thank you guys so much. Peace.
Peace.